Evening Calvert, this is Apeirogon. We are going to talk today about the controversies surrounding the most hated but also one of the most beloved books that appeared on the Book of 2020 long list. Yes, I am talking about Apeirogon by Colum McCann. Now, you might be sat at home scratching your heads going, I actually don't know what any of these controversies are, and that is fine. This video is for you, and if you do know about the controversies, we're going to discuss them in a bit of depth, and we're gonna, as readers, think critically about this. Please note in the description this video is entirely time-stamped, and below the timestamps you will see myriad channels linked. Now, because this is my first video essay, and importantly I wanted this to be correct, I sent out a first draft, and these lovely people came back to me with their reflections, with their criticisms, with their debates, with their points. So this video has been an amalgamation of the feedback I've received from them. Thank you all so much. Now, there was something in that last sentence which might seem quite insignificant, but really it's vital. This must be correct. We live in an age where we can get so much information surged at us that it's quite easy to jump on bandwagons. It's quite easy to not think critically about what we are being presented with. Now, I know with Apeirogon, because I've been in these conversations, not everyone's facts are correct. Now, in order to have these conversations, in order to think critically about them, about what it means as us as a reader, what it means as the role of the reader, what it means for publishing, and what it means for authors, we really need to think and reflect. If this is not correct, there is no point in having the conversation. So let us begin with the first controversy, which I assume most people know about. Most people are aware that Colum McCann has been accused by an ex-partner of his of sexual assault. I'm going to be upfront on a few things. If you compare this topic to the one I am going to discuss a few minutes down the line, I solely base this on time, you might think that I'm not giving this the discussion that it deserves, but it comes down to two. There is not a lot of information on this. What I'm going to present to you is the only information that we have. Thirdly, please know I'm actually quite uncomfortable to talk about this, and I can understand if some people find this problematic as me as a white guy talking about sexual allegations. I'm not here to attack or defend Colum McCann. I am here to merely provide you with the timeline and the information that we know. The 17th of February 2020, Randa Jarrah puts up this tweet. The married man in this piece is Colum McCann, who now has a book about Palestinians and peace. He harmed me. I will not leave this up very long. I'm tired of being a punching bag. I have heard from women students of his that he behaves unethically. Shortly after this goes public, Randa puts up this tweet. A little traction is made, a few comments, a few retweets, but this does not go into the public eye until Roxanne Gay, her friend, comments saying, I was that friend, this is all true. Now, in case you don't know who Roxanne Gay is, she wrote a book called Hunger, which talks about her reflections of being gang raped at a young age. She's now known for outing people online in regards to sexual allegations. Roxanne Gay knew by commenting on this would go more public. On the next day, the February 18th, the tweets are taken down. Randa says, I deleted the tweet because I'm exhausted and I want to live a peaceful life. I hope the folks who know now will keep fighting. What he did to me was wrong, and I hope he is held accountable. Apart from a few news aggregators that I wouldn't class as reputable sources of information, and a few blog posts and a few opinion pieces, there is nothing on this matter. It's all the information we can go off. So understandably, some people, due to these allegations, do not want to support Colum McCann and do not want to buy his books. Completely understandable. As I did make a pledge that I was going to read all the Booker 2020 long list. I tried to order this from my library because I could then read the book without financially giving back to Colum McCann, even though there are fees related to authors for if their books are... Anyway, based on the allegations, I completely understand if you did not want to buy this book completely, or if you don't want to order it from your library and read it, I understand. But down below you will see a timestamp called Charities, and I'm going to talk about a charity that I think, if you don't want to give the £19 towards this book, please consider giving to the charity linked below. It is timestamped, but it's going to give a better understanding to why I've chosen that charity and why I feel what they are doing to protect women and children from abusers fits perfectly into what Colum McCann is doing. And again, I think it's a really worthy cause, and I've worked with them in the past and they are fantastic. Miranda did make another tweet on February the 18th, which links us perfectly into the other issue that people have with this book, which is going to take up the majority of this video. She tweeted out, "I am hoping for a larger conversation about white men stealing stories from people they pretend they want to help, while in private they harm them in irreversible ways. I'm hoping for our literary world to honour and elevate our stories." Yes, in the next section we are going to have this larger conversation. Should Dublin-born, now New York resident Colum McCann have the right to talk about the Israeli and Palestinian conflict? Own voices. Should cultural minorities and ethnic minorities talk about their experiences, or is anyone able to come in and bring their perspective from it, their outside perspective on it? Is it possible for Colum McCann to elevate and give honour to a culture and country that he is not from? Apeirogon, the shape with a infinitely countable number of sides. And as we branch in and out of this book, at the heart we have Rami and Bassam. Bassam is a Palestinian, Rami is an Israeli, and both of them love their daughters. But given a gap of 10 years, both daughters will arrive in the same hospital and die there. They did not die because they were sick. They did not die because they were neglected. They did not die because that's what happens sometimes. No, they die due to the civil unrest, the war that is going on between Israel and Palestine. Two religions, two cultures at each other's throats. Bassam's daughter Abia is shot with a rubber bullet in the back of her head, cracking her skull, her face hitting the concrete by a border police guard outside of her school. Rami's daughter Smadar is killed in a suicide bombing while she's listening to Sinead O'Connor out buying sweets. Already this is a heart-breaking premise to a story, but what makes it oh so painful as you read these pages is that Bassam and Rami are real people that exist, and their daughters did die in that way. And Colum McCann, an Irish author born in Dublin who knows not of Israel and Palestine, really writes their story for them. And this is where own voices has really come into the mix here. A lot of people are bitter, they are angry that Colum McCann has decided to take these people's story and make it his own work. Now, before we discuss that a bit further, let's actually listen to Colum McCann explain how he met Rami and Bassam.
And I want to tell you first how I sort of came upon the story of Rami and Bassam. I was traveling with my non-profit group, Narrative 4, which is a global story exchange organization that brings kids together from all over the world to tell one another's stories. I was also traveling with another non-profit group called Tell Us, which is run by my friend Greg Khalil, who brings teams of peacemakers together to travel all over the world, but primarily in Israel and Palestine, to sort of nuance things up and give people access to all sorts of different sides. This is not a two-sided thing, but it is a polygonal thing.
Okay, let's quickly stop there, because this is actually, I'm going to take over high editing. Kira, you may be like me, and apart from Apeirogon, not have I never heard of Colum McCann before, but I'm actually not sure of any of his other novels. So I've actually been going through the books that he's written, looking to another country and telling that story, breathing new life into it, seems to be something McCann does. If we have a look at the 2006 novel Zoli, about Mariana Novotna, whose nickname Zoli, is based on the real-life Polish Romani poet Papusha. 2003, Colum McCann brought out Dancer, about famed Russian ballet performer Rudolf Nureyev. It's always very sticky when you start going into authors' back catalogues like this, because why was no one speaking up about Dancer and Zoli when we came out? Does this Russian voice, does this Polish voice not deserve the same defense as those of Rami and Bassam's from readers? I think it's worth thinking about that, but I'm gonna bring you back into my original point. Okay, let's quickly stop there, because this is really important, and I promise we'll get on to Rami and Bassam soon. Colum McCann is in Palestine for his own non-profit organization, Narrative 4, which is to have access to stories which otherwise would not be told, and to give them new life, give them lease, give them scope, which is much needed in countries where, even though people are writing about their own experience, which is at the heart of own voices, they are not getting the publicity, they are not getting the justice, they're not getting into people's hands. What they are getting into people's hands is people who are in that country. And I think that's really important as a reader to think of, why aren't we getting those books? These own voices, these own stories, these own narratives exist. They exist in this world, but what is it that stops it reaching international level? What stops someone translating that? Now, I don't have the answer for this, and I don't think Colum McCann has the answer to this, but his charity group is there for the purpose of sharing these stories. And sharing stories is really vital. Personally, for me, if an author is able to tell a story and it causes a conversation and brings light to books written by own voices, that is completely fine by me. But now, this does not mean that anyone can go and write any story set anywhere and claim it to be the truth. That is a completely different thing. If you are going to base a story in another country, in another culture, you have to make sure your facts are right. You have to do the research to make sure that what you say is true. You can't make things up. That is wrong. Now, this is where, for me, the waters get extremely muddy. Can a novel even claim to be true? If Colum McCann really wanted to write about the conflicts between a Palestinian and an Israeli, could he have not written a non-fiction piece? Maybe submit something to an anthology? Well, he did.
One of the first things that I wrote about was that article for Michael Chabon's anthology, which is an extraordinary book, bringing writers together from all around the world to look at what's going on in that area.
But I completely understand. Maybe writing one non-fiction piece for a collection is not the best argument. But we can see Colum McCann really wants to engage in this topic. Did he go into this story straight away thinking, I will write about this? Did he have any reservations whatsoever?
I went back to New York and I said, I really want to write about Israel and Palestine. And I don't know how to do it. But how do I, as a sort of middle-class, middle-aged Irish writer, how do I engage with that area of the world? And to be honest with you, Mark, I started writing a novel about a Belfast woman, an ophthalmologist, who goes to the West Bank in search of her son who'd gone over there before her. And I started writing that novel because I felt that I could bring myself to that area of the world. And I hated it. I kept working at it because I was at the coalface. But it didn't feel true. It didn't feel honest. It didn't feel as if it was working in any true way. So then I was chatting with my co-founder, Lisa Consiglio, about writing about Israel and Palestine. And she said to me, "Well, what was it about that trip that really that really grabbed you?" I said, "Well, Rami and Bassam, of course." And she said, "Well, why don't you write about them?" And it was one of those moments where I thought, I can't do this. I mean, what right do I have?
Why don't you write about Rami and Bassam? An interesting question, but what right does Colum McCann have? He's Irish, he's white, he's middle class, he lives in America, in New York. He's so far removed. Think about it, you as you're sat home now, how could you write a story about two men that exist? That story is real. How do you go about that? You wouldn't have the faintest clue of how to even start.
And it was one of those moments where I thought, I can't do this. I mean, what right do I have? What do I know? And I also was well aware that that it was going to be a very, very difficult novel to write. But I think it was Spinoza who said, "All things excellent are as difficult as they are rare."
That's a really interesting quote. Let's listen to that again.
Spinoza who said, "All things excellent are as difficult as they are rare."
All things excellent are as difficult as they are rare. That's a good quote. Now let's put aside your personal opinion or other people's opinion of, is this an excellent book or not? Is it a difficult book? Yes, in regards to its content. And what a rare opportunity to listen to two men tell their stories. Now, I've already told you what this book is about, but let's hear it from Rami and Bassam themselves. And it's heartbreaking. These clips, they don't get any easier to watch.
Two Palestinian suicide bombers blew themselves up in Ben Yehuda Street in the center of Jerusalem. They killed 5 people that day, including 3 little girls. One of these girls was my 14-year-old mother. It was Thursday afternoon and the beginning of a very long and very cold night, which continues until today.
16th of January 2007. It was the most difficult day in my life. In that day, a teenager Israeli soldier, border police, shot and killed my 10-year-old daughter, Abir. She was 10 years old in front of her school from a distance of 15 to 20 meters in her head from the back. She fell down and 2 days later she passed away in Hadassah Hospital, in fact, where she born, and where Smadar born and died. Between Abir and Smadar, it's 10 years. The same day, the same time, the same killer, which is the hatred and the occupation. They paid the highest price only because they are Palestinians and Israelis. They have nothing to do with the conflict and they don't know anything about it.
Direct from the people's mouths, Rami and Bassam, who have been telling this story, repeating their grief, repeating those facts, repeating their stories time and time again for years, not months, years they have been saying this. And although there was some coverage, it was minimal. This story was listened to by thousands and it could not break any further than those years, with some echo chambers going on, but no one truly investing themselves in these people. And Colum McCann he did listen, and it affected him to the point that he wanted to write Apeirogon. I really want to go back and focus on one thing that Colum McCann mentioned that I did not talk about, and it's right here.
How do I engage with that area of the world? And to be honest with you, Mark, I started writing a novel about a Belfast woman who goes to the West Bank in search of her son who'd gone over there before her, because I felt that I could bring myself to that area of the world. And I hated it. It didn't feel true.
After watching a good number of hours about Colum McCann speaking about his experience and journey writing Apeirogon, this bit really shocked me, that he was originally intended to write a story from an Irish perspective to bring it into the conversation of Palestine and Israel and that conflict, but it didn't work, and that it didn't sound true. And again, it's that truth part that I think's that's like a real key word here, and I don't think true is as clear cut as we think. Though Colum McCann wants to be part of this conversation, it doesn't feel honest, it doesn't feel right to him to force himself into that, to bring his experience into the story. Instead, he wants to go direct to source. He wants to go to the people who experience it, to the stories of individuals. Really, he's removing himself completely in order to give this story, Apeirogon, like the truth that he wants. I think that's poignant. That's like a real poignant part. He doesn't want to force himself into a story from his own perspective, from his own experience, because it doesn't feel true to him. That's a point of view I feel as though we miss out on. That yes, you can appropriate culture, but equally should you insert yourself into the story. And as all of us are going to discover, that these conversations about should authors be able to talk about experiences that aren't their own, it makes this conversation murky, muddy, and cloudy. Because the conversation tends to go, if we really pull it down to its baseline, you should not be able to speak about them. It is their priority to speak about their experiences. But does that enforce that they should only speak about their experience? Writing literature is itself a creative expression, and should we gatekeep people? Should we stifle their expression? Should we stop them telling the stories that they want? Now, I'm not going to talk about this, but for further reading, I'm going to link down below a Guardian article. In this Guardian article are people from cultural minorities from ethnic minorities, discussing should people be able to talk about other cultures. Do not be passive in this conversation. Click the link down below and have a look at what might be some authors that you've read have to say on this matter. And I would love to be able to have a conversation down below in the comments about that. Thank you again, Campbell, for having a conversation with me and mentioning this link. Really good reading. Despite what we think, 5 years ago, Colum McCann wanted to write this story, and after a failed attempt of a novel where he inserts himself, he goes back to the drawing board.
So then I was chatting with my co-founder, Lisa Consiglio, about writing about Israel and Palestine, and she said to me, "Well, what was it about that trip that really that really grabbed you?" I said, "Well, Rami and Bassam, of course." And she said, "Well, why don't you write about them?"
Colum McCann contacts Rami and Bassam and says that he wants to write their story. Now, should he have made them aware that he was going to write a novel and not a piece of non-fiction? But he did.
I went to the guys and I said to them, "Listen, Rami and Bassam, can I write about you?" And they said, "Yes, of course." And then I kind of said, "Now, I'm not sure that you really understand what I'm saying. I'm a novelist. I'm also a journalist and I love journalism, but I'm a novelist. I want to create a novel around your stories, and being the people that they are, and being that their message is the most important thing to them, their simple and incredibly convoluted message that we need to know one another." They said, "Whatever it is you want to do," they trusted me, and I trusted them, and I went away and spent the next 5 years working on this book, traveling back and forth to Israel and Palestine.
Colum McCann is up front. He explains that he is a novelist and he's not going to write a piece of non-fiction. Rami and Bassam trust him as much as he has to trust them in order to get the message across. I think he's ticked all the boxes in being open, transparent, and meeting the expectations of these two fathers in order to bring their words to a wider audience. Now, could Colum McCann have just written a biography? Could he have written another non-fiction piece? Yes. But Colum McCann views this book as a hybrid novel. And what does that mean?
Now, a lot of people ask me, is this fiction or is this non-fiction? I hate to say it's actually both. It's a hybrid novel, and I don't really care if it's fiction or non-fiction. I just want it to be true, and so I tried so hard for it to be true, and I gave it to dozens of Israeli readers to look at it and to critique it. I gave it to dozens of Palestinian readers to read it and critique it. They came back to me, sometimes on the same point, saying that's correct, and the other saying that's incorrect. And I had to try and boil it all down to the elemental story, which is the story of Rami and Bassam.
I know what you're probably thinking here, Kieran. Is having Colum McCann explain what Colum McCann did a little bit biased? He's not going to say that he did anything wrong, that he didn't overstep the mark, that he hasn't appropriated a story. He's not going to, and I completely understand. Let's go and listen to Rami and Bassam about this then. Let's hear it from the people that this story is about. They're the people who we need to listen to in this discussion.
Colum McCann did what everyone did. I mean, they listened to our stories, they cried a little bit, and they move on. But Colum McCann did not move on. Colum McCann stayed and became a friend and became a brother and became a figure which is so central in our life And his rare ability to tell our stories in a way that we could never ever do it, spread it to so many people, portrayed in a way that breaks people's hearts and make them understand what we are doing, is something that I will be forever grateful.
Forever grateful. That is what Rami has just said. If the people who this story is written about, if it's their story and they are happy with it, shouldn't we be reading their story? Colum McCann has done what they wanted, which is to get their message out. Would it change your mind if they thought this was a masterpiece?
The book is a masterpiece. I read it on the way to New York on the plane. I couldn't take it off my head. I skipped all the personal parts because it really felt like I was listening to myself recorded, and it was very peculiar. But the story itself as a story, the layers of the story, the way it throws you back and forth from one reality to another reality was so fascinating that I just couldn't take it off my head.
I didn't read the book until now, as I promised Colum. I will try to read it. It's very difficult for me. It's very difficult to think how some genius man described this ongoing pain. In Arabic, we call it hasra. Hasra, it's more than pain. It's still forever. You will never heal. And you need to know how to deal with it, how to live with it. He described it in a very, very painful way that I couldn't continue to read the book. But it gives the message a very good stage to spread this message around the world with millions of people, to touch millions of people. For that, we are very grateful for Colum as a writer, as a friend, and as a brother.
You've heard it from the people that this novel revolves around. That it's spreading the message across about how two young, innocent girls were killed. That for them, it's so true that they can't read the book. Bassam, it feels too real for him. For Rami, he skims over the bits that's based on him because it's so raw. This is their story. Yes, Colum McCann's name might be at the top. Yes, he wrote all of it. But it's their story. This is their voice. And if they are happy with it, if they are grateful for what Colum McCann does, if it's so emotional and not even they can read it, surely we should. Not for Colum McCann, but for Rami and Bassam, for Abia and Smadar. I do want to mention this point because as I've brought it up with various people, they weren't aware, and I think due to COVID and the fact that book tours have stopped. I'll show you this clip here.
And Bassam, Aramin, my good friends from Jerusalem and Jericho. Please give them a round of applause.
Who are the co-directors of the Parents Circle Families Forum, a joint Israeli and Palestinian organization made up of 600 bereaved families who share their stories to promote peace. Thank you for being here.
It's wonderful to see that they aren't just in a crowd, they're actually part of the conversation and they talk about the journey of Colum McCann writing the story itself as well. It's as much his journey of writing the book as it's been theirs.
For me, the minute we sat there in Bejala and I saw the tears in his eyes, a click was in the air and I felt connection. And I tell this story thousands of times.
It's wonderful to see them all on stage. It's wonderful.
I feel like an actor on the stage with a mission. And the mission is to give some sense to this senseless killing. My feeling is that Smadar and Abir are standing behind us, telling us, showing us, this is what you should do, because we were not fighters, we were not participating in the conflict, we are victims.
They are victims. The parents circle, which is highlighted in the back of this book as a charity in order to donate, and I will put links down below. But what is the parent circle?
We belong to a group of Israeli and Palestinian bereaved families who gathered together to create this unique organization, which is known by the name of the Parent Circle, the Israeli Palestinian Bereaved Families for Peace, which is probably the only organization on earth that does not seek new members.
In Colum McCann's acknowledgement, he mentions the Parents Circle, whose aim is to end the cycle of bloodshed and towards achieving a diplomatic arrangement agreed upon by both sides. If you still are not interested in buying this book because you don't want to give Colum McCann or the publishing house the money, put it there. That will go direct to Bassam and Rami's cause. I was really keen to know if Colum McCann is practicing what he is preaching in the acknowledgements. He mentions a number of charities in which for us as readers to go seek out and donate to if we have the funds available. Now, I could not find anything to confirm that any proceeds, any profits from this book will in fact feed down the line to these charities. I sent an email to the publishing house and to Colum McCann's literary agent. I've not received a response yet. Actually, I will find the email and I'll share it with you. I'm not going to put any personal information there, and I'm not going to give out the email addresses, but I'm going to tell you what the body of the email was just for transparency. I think it might be interesting. So I wrote, I recently read Apeirogon and would be interested to know if any of the profit is going to Rami and Bassam, or any of the charities mentioned in the acknowledgements page. The Parent Circle, Combatants for Peace, Tell Us, or McCann's own charity, Narrative 4. I run a channel on YouTube where I'm reviewing all the book along lists. Please find links below. Now, I think I should probably explain why I put that line in. I really wanted to put like a face to it, so they could click the link, see my reviews of the book of 2021, that they would know that I would be reviewing Apeirogon, and just kind of give like I'm actually serious, like I'm kind of want to know, I'm curious, which is why I followed it up with at the end. I think the information would be interest to those who wish to purchase this book. Please know that I am not interested in the actual figures, though that would be of interest to me. All I want to know is that this book is practicing what it preaches. Kind regards, Kieran. I understand for a business, they don't have to disclose that information. But even if some of the money is going back to these charities, I think people would want to know that. Even if you weren't keen on reading Apeirogon, if you knew, say, some of the money was going to go back to Rami and Bassam, was going to go back into helping the situation that Colum McCann is depicted, is telling us and making us aware of, I think that's really important. But I'm not surprised they haven't got back to me. I'm not surprised. Now, while we're talking about charities, I really want to talk about Welsh Women's Aid. I am from Wales, and I think this charity is amazing. They put women and children first. Simply, if a woman or child is being mentally, physically, or sexually abused by their partner, by their husband, by their boyfriend, by anyone, they put them in a safe place to protect them and to get them to live the life that they want. Now, the reason why I've chosen Welsh Women Aid in particular, they ran this project 40 Voices, 40 years to raise money, and as Colum McCann wants to tell stories to get their message out, that's what Welsh Women's Aid wanted to do. So please do consider clicking the donation link below to give money to such a worthy cause for a topic that needs to be taken extremely seriously. This is the end of the video. Now, if you would be interested in part 3 where we can look at the difficulties of cultural appropriation and own voices and who gets to write these stories, let me know down below. I think it would be really worthwhile to dig and mine into that conversation further. If you have not liked and subscribed, please do. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Would you have any questions? Let me know down in the comments below, and please do check out the lovely people, again, all linked. Read more, stay safe.